The Prince and Princess of Wales take on Boston for the Earthshot Prize Awards.
And I thought it was a great way to really bring so much attention to the Earthshot Awards because the dress was so bright, the necklace was Diana's. There was so much that said, pay attention to what we're doing here. So I thought that was really powerful and kind of, quieted the other stories, at least for one night.
Plus, Meghan and Harry released the trailer for their new docuseries, Harry and Meghan, and Jonathan Sacerdoti talks about the interesting timing in its release.
From Harry himself, well, I think this is really a punch to the royal family once again from the couple.
Plus, Christopher Anderson breaks down how the royal family feels about Harry and Meghan's latest project.
I don't quite understand what the end game here is on the part of Harry and Meghan. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hey everyone, that's Christine. I'm Christina, and welcome to Royally Us. And wow, Christine, there's a lot to get to this week.
I mean, where are we going to start, Christina? Because there is a lot to discuss this week. I mean,
oh God.
You believe
I actually can't, but there is, so let's get right into our royal roundup. Let's kick it off with the Prince and Princess of Wales. Of course, they were in Boston for the Earthshot Awards. The couple made a 3-day visit where they met with President Biden. They lit the town green, attended a Celtics game, met a mini guard, and of course, ended it with the star-studded Earthshot event. Take a quick look.
The decisions we make now will affect generations to come, which is why we must choose the path of hope, optimism, and urgency to repair our planet.
All right. So overall, what did you think about the trip? Did you find it to be a success, somewhere in between? What were your thoughts about this?
I think if we really zone in on the trip and sort of block out everything else that happened around it, I think the trip was really successful. I loved seeing everyone, so many Americans, so many people that, social media accounts, all went to Boston to get together. I feel like it was a really, really fun event and people were so excited to see them. And William and Kate actually did sort of, give a good spotlight and platform to so many important causes and a lot of the good work that Boston's doing really, really well in terms of sustainability. So I would say it was a success as long as you block everything else out.
You had to block out, but it's so hard. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more. And Jonathan kind of breaks down, of course, the timing of the Harry and Meghan teaser trailer that happened, right when they pretty much got to Boston and really kind of sucked the air out of the room a little bit for them. And then, of course, the Lady Hussey allegations and things like that with that resignation. So there was a lot of a dark cloud kind of hovering over their Boston trip. But like you said, overall, if you just kind of hone in on what their plans were to do, they got the job done. The Earthshot Awards, it looked beautiful, spotlighted climate change, which is so important to him. Kate wore a rented dress, which I loved, and that vibrant green, and of course, wearing Princess Diana's choker. I mean, she looked gorgeous, and they mingled with, David Beckham, Rami Malek. So a lot of big stars were also in attendance. But yeah, it's kind of hard to ignore what happened around them during this trip.
I know it was, just back to Kate's dress, because I feel like that was a real highlight of this trip. It was the first time we'd seen her in a rental. It cost £74 to rent it. So, not just environmentally friendly, but budget friendly. And I thought it was a great way to really bring so much attention to the Earthshot Awards because the dress was so bright, the necklace was Diana's. There was so much that said, pay attention to what we're doing here. So I thought that was really powerful and kind of, quieted the other stories, at least for one night for Prince William's big Earthshot Awards. But of course, pretty much as soon as they landed back in the UK, we were back to the drama.
Back to the drama. Oh, to be a fly on the wall in William and Kate's hotel room during that time. Oof. All right. Well, let's like you said. So during the midst of all this, Harry and Meghan released the first teaser for their docuseries, Harry and Meghan, and now the first official trailer is also here. Harry goes in on the royal family. He goes in on the press saying they leak stories, how he is worried once again that history will repeat itself, referencing Princess Diana. People have a lot of opinions on this. Of course, we want to hear about yours in the comments. But what was your initial reaction when you first saw this trailer?
I find the trailers, the teaser trailer and the main trailer were really upsetting because I worry that this is going to do irreparable damage, but I also worry that it's being created by Netflix, you know, because Meghan and Harry have spoken so much about how they want to tell their love story. They want to talk about their story and their relationship. And it seems like it's being really steered into this family drama. And we've seen in the last few months, we've heard several stories that Meghan and Harry are probably trying to like backtrack, you know, mend some bridges. And, you know, I think after the Queen's death, we saw the brothers together and there were sort of not necessarily hope for this big reconciliation, but at least a slow patching of this relationship. But I suspect that Netflix does not want that at all, because this drama is what's going to sell subscriptions. And so I worry that Netflix is really going to push this story to be as dramatic and as much of a train wreck as it can possibly be.
I agree with you. I think that this is, like you said, I don't think that there's any turning back after this. Of course, once we get the documentary, then we get the book 1 month later. So I feel like it's going to be a war of the words. And who knows if we'll ever hear the other side, because, you know, never complain, never explain. So we don't know if we'll ever hear anything. This might force them to maybe finally address something, because it's going to maybe be hard not to, especially, you know, if Harry, just in this trailer, he's, you know, throwing around accusations that they leaked stories to the press, that there was a hierarchy and that they never got the support that they made. You know, in the trailer, we also say that, you know, this was a race issue again. So it seems like they're definitely going to be talking about that too, how this kind of ties back into Princess Diana. And, you know, this is their truth. And, you know, they're not executive producers on the Netflix series. So, yes, they don't get final say. I'm sure that they worked heavily with you know, the director, you know, and the producer. So I'm sure that they did have a lot of input into this. But yeah, ultimately, this is Netflix call. They're getting paid a lot of money and they want to sell something that is really good and really juicy. And I'm sure that they're going to deliver.
Yeah. And just back to something you said and sort of what Harry says in this trailer is that, you know, like, they're there to tell the story and, you know, tell the truth, but it's important. And something that I just wish, I want to put it as like a disclaimer in front of this show, is that this is Harry and Meghan's experience and their side of the story. And that is their experience and their truth, but it's not necessarily the whole truth. And my concern is that people are going to take this documentary as gospel, because the royal family may not respond. You know, William and Kate may never speak out and share their side of the story, and therefore we only get one side of the story. And I would hate for that to become, you know, the gospel truth on this situation.
Right. It's interesting, some of the photos that they chose to use in both the teaser and in the trailer. You know, they show that photo of in the teaser of the four of them at the Commonwealth service, you know, the last event that they were at as senior members of the royal family. Of course, when you can cut the tension in the room there. Then in the teaser trailer, when they're talking about, you know, princesses in, you know, I forget the exact words that it used, but, you know, talking negatively about how they treated women in the royal family. And then they show Kate and Camilla. So, I mean, the choice of photos that they used. And then it was also interesting. I saw a couple of reports going around that there's this shot of paparazzi saying, you know, they're following Harry and Meghan's every move. And it made it seem like there were all these paparazzi photographing Harry and Meghan, when it was actually a stock photo from a 2011 Harry Potter premiere.
There was a couple of these. Yeah. So the main trailer showed a couple of these clips, and when it was actually fact checked, sort of reverse image searched, these photos had nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. It was from, you know, like the Harry Potter premiere and Donald Trump's lawyer and sort of Katie Price going to court. And one of the concerns that I've talked about a lot is that this is going to be so meticulously fact checked. And this is a good example of that it's going to be so meticulously, painstakingly fact checked that any inconsistency is just going to end up, you know, devaluing the whole project. Wonderful. And so now I'm even less sure that they've actually taken care and, you know, given this the attention that it really needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is surprising, because you would think that Netflix would know that fans are going to dissect every little thing, and you have to be 100% on point and, you know, check all your sources, check all your photos. It is interesting. And like we said before, you know, we'll talk more about the documentary with Christopher in a little bit and how the royal family feels. But, you know, we did catch up with Jonathan Sacerdoti, who had this to say about the timing of Harry and Meghan's teaser drop. Of course, it happened right around William and Kate in Boston. And, you know, he pretty much says they hijacked their trip. So take a look. Well, Jonathan, it is great to see you as always. And I just have to ask you, what was your initial reaction when you saw this trailer?
When did the royal family become the Kardashians? And who's the driving force behind that? Because whoever it is, I think it's time she stops. I have to say, this trailer is everything we expected and worse. I think it shows just the high drama that Netflix and Meghan and Harry plan to make of this. And to drop it as they have on the first or second day of the Prince and Princess of Wales's trip to the US for the Earthshot Prize shows just exactly how much they wanted to hijack that publicity. It just shows, I think, how much they will go to any end at all for as much publicity as possible. They will jump on his own brother's trip to promote these environmental prizes in order to steal that limelight and get more attention, because really ultimately what it comes down to is the idea that they only get attention because of their association with the royal family, and they're continuing to prove that in the way they're promoting the Netflix program.
I mean, you made a good point that they dropped this, on the second day before the Earthsharp Prize Awards. This is probably Prince William's, most important initiative. He's been talking about this for months. So how do you think the royal family feels about this right now? How do you think the Waleses feel about this?
I don't think we can necessarily expect better from them, but from Harry himself, well, I think this is really a punch to the royal family once again from the couple.
Right. Do you think the Waleses are even paying attention to this right now? Do you think the royal family is paying attention, or are they just concentrating on what they came to Boston to do?
I think it's pretty hard not to pay attention to this. I mean, they're a bit like the dishwasher beep, when it's finished in the dishes and it beeps every few seconds, just to, I'm still here, I'm finished. I think you can't ignore it. It's a constant noise for them, and it's something that they'd like to go away. They've just like the dishwasher, they've done their thing, they've finished. Maybe they should just stop beeping now, but that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that really the actual trailer itself also can put to bed any doubts anyone might have had about their claims to want less attention and less publicity. I mean, in the opening seconds of this seconds-long trailer alone, they've shared dozens of black and white photos, sort of Instagram-style filtered private photos of themselves in love. And I think it just makes a mockery of the idea that they wanted less attention.
We're going to break it down completely next week. We have the first 3 episodes, and then the following week is the final 3 episodes, but there's going to be a lot of stuff in there.
I'm not looking forward to it, and yet looking forward to it at the same time. It's one of those.
It's like a train wreck. You can't help but watch.
Yeah. It's a car accident in slow motion.
Exactly. All right. Well, something else, like we said, that happened during William and Kate's trip to Boston. A domestic abuse activist, Ngozi Fulani, claimed via Twitter that she was asked racially insensitive questions by a member of staff. That, of course, was Lady Suzanne Hussey during an event at Buckingham Palace. She claimed that she was asked, "Where do you really come from? And what part of Africa are you from?" Despite her repeated assertions that she was born in the United Kingdom. Well, Buckingham Palace swiftly made an announcement saying that she had resigned from her position, saying, "We take this incident extremely seriously and have investigated immediately to establish the full details. In this instant, unacceptable and deeply regrettable comments have been made." Now, Fulani, for her part, told The Guardian that she never felt so unwelcome or so uncomfortable as she did during her visit to Buckingham Palace. She did go on to say that she didn't want her to be fired or resign. She wanted her to be educated in this moment and for somebody to have a conversation with her. But interesting that, there have been, of course, race allegations in the past against the royal family. And this time they decided to act swiftly and did some immediate damage control.
I think that the speed in which this was handled really shows how serious Buckingham Palace is taking in any of these situations. Mm-hmm. Fulani tweeted about her experience, and I think it was within an hour or 2 of those tweets coming out that Buckingham Palace had the statement out. Lady Susan Hussey had resigned. These conversations were already happening. And mm-hmm. to my knowledge, Ngozi Fulani did not reach out to the palace beforehand. This was just, she tweeted it. So they had to have seen this tweet, done all of this legwork, writing the statement, speaking to Lady Susan Hussey, making these changes, and then, publicly sharing this information. So they took it very seriously. They did it very quickly. And I do think that shows, they are learning. And a lot of people will say, well, she's an older woman, Lady Susan Hussey, she's an older woman and they're from a different generation, but that's really not an acceptable excuse, and Buckingham Palace needs to make sure that everyone that's representing the royal family, the Buckingham Palace staff, are all well educated.
Right.
So I think what we saw here is them making change, noticing that there is a problem, and swiftly taking action.
Definitely, yeah. They definitely made the right move, and it seems like this is a step in the right direction. All right, well, let's move on to some happy news. So new details of King Charles's May coronation have been revealed, as the St. Edward's crown, of course, the historic centerpiece of the crown jewels, has been removed from the Tower of London to allow for some modification work to begin ahead of next year's coronation. As per tradition, the king will be crowned with St. Edward's crown during the coronation service at Westminster Abbey. He will wear the state crown during the service. Of course, this was worn by Queen Elizabeth at her coronation in 1953. It was made for Charles II in 1661 as a replacement for the medieval crown, which had been melted down in 1649. This is one old crown, so they better handle it with care. But yeah, so this is pretty exciting that, preparations are already getting underway, months in advance. The first thought that comes to my head, and I don't know why, is how heavy this crown must be. And I'm sure that the modification work is to sort of fit it to King Charles's head so that it's as comfortable as possible. But it really is a reminder of, we're sort of leaving this time of mourning and of change and entering a time of celebration. And that's such a strange transition. A lot of people are still mourning Queen Elizabeth and not quite used to King Charles. Luckily, we have until May to keep adjusting, but it's exciting to see that, the celebratory events are on the way. Definitely a lot to look forward to. All right, well, let's spill some royalty and swing it back to Harry and Meghan, because Mandana Diani, she was the president of the Archwell Foundation. She stepped down. So they told The Independent, Ms. Tahani has been an integral part of Archwell, and we are grateful for her passion, commitment, and leadership. Ms. Tahani was brought on during their parental leave to move the company and its projects forward. She has continued to shape its vision and future successfully. They added that her transition was mutually planned with intent for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to now take on full lead of the company, and there will be no replacement. She was initially appointed as both the president, the chief operating officer of Archwell in September of 2021, shortly after they welcomed their daughter Lily. Now, this news also comes as Rebecca Sanis, the head of audio, has left the couple's Archwell Foundation, and she stepped down. She was in charge of the Archetypes podcast, and she was instrumental in all the high-profile bookings. So interesting that two very high-ranking individuals either stepped down, could have been fired. It seems like Harry and Meghan are definitely taking on a more control in their everyday projects.
Yeah, definitely. With the Mandana Diani stepping down, I can sort of, you and I both have children around the same age as Archie and Lily. And I know I'm starting to get to that point where I feel a little bit more like human again. So I'm sure Harry and Meghan are sort of, the children are old enough where they can take on more work and projects. And, now that Lily, I'm sure, is more independent, Meghan and Harry probably feel like they have more time to dedicate to their work. So that I can sort of sympathize with, and I can see that change and how it would make sense for the team. The head of audio, it makes me curious just because we haven't heard any updates about archetypes in a long time. And so I'd like to see how that develops. It could be nothing, right? Like maybe we're reading too much into this, but I'll be interested to see what we hear from now.
No, definitely, because they haven't announced a season 2 of the podcast yet. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Well, this is also interesting. In a new interview with Channel 4 News, the former head of counterterrorism for the Metropolitan Police, Neil Basu, said that there were genuine threats to the Duchess of Sussex's life while she lived in the UK. A reporter asked if there were serious threats against her. He said, absolutely. And if you'd seen the stuff that was written and you were receiving it, the kind of rhetoric that's online, if you don't know what I know, you would feel under threat all of the time. He said that her life was threatened on multiple instances, and they had teams investigating the allegations. That is really scary.
It's really scary. And I think that just one quick Twitter search will tell you how much vitriol is online. And that's what we know about and can see very easily. So the stuff that's sort of in darker corners of the internet or, sort of anonymously submitted, it would be extremely concerning. And I think that this happens to many high profile people, especially members of the royal family, family members of any royal family or any sort of presidential prime ministerial family would, receive those threats. And it is sort of a scary, it's a scary thing for people in high profile positions, but I can't imagine, feeling that threat. Like he says, if you know what I know, you feel under threat all the time. I can't imagine that.
No, I can't imagine. And that's, probably one of the reasons they decided to pick up and move, because they were getting, these threats on a daily basis. And, why live in fear when you don't have to? Hopefully this Netflix documentary answers a lot of things. So let's break down the royal rules, and to help us do that is author of the King, The Life of King Charles III, of course, our friend Christopher Anderson, who's giving us his take on Harry and Meghan's documentary, what it means for his future relationship with the royal family, and so much more. Take a look. How do you think the royal family feels about this?
Oh my God, they're horrified, and I think they're just all holding their breaths and waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, there are two shoes that are going to drop, because there's part one is tonight, and then the other shoe's dropping next week. I just think, again, the sense of betrayal is shifted over now to genuine combat mode, because obviously this is a war, between the two. If there was any idea, and by the two camps, the Sussexes and the royal family, I don't quite understand what the end game here is on the part of Harry and Meghan. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Mm-hmm. But Charles is key. He's been handed this horrible problem. It's the kind of thing that the Queen would have tried to, just ignore for as long as she possibly could. But he's not that kind of person. I don't think he can. I mean, with the coronation coming up, everyone's always asking, are they going to be invited to the coronation? Are they going to attend the coronation, given all the German drang going on? So that's another question.
Do you expect, we don't know what's going to be said, but do you expect them to respond to this?
Oh, yes. I think there will be muted responses to whatever specifics are in there. But we have to wait and see what the accusations are, what the tone. There is that overall thing that William dealt with. He had nightmares about how Kate was being pursued by the press. And yes, he thought, would she end up the way his mother ended up? Totally understandable. And there was anger on William's part at the time. Harry faced similar problems. It's just that he's dealt with it in such an unusual way, especially in his relationship with his father, who has extended olive branch after olive branch to try and get him back into the fold in some, manner. I think he's more inclined to be less rigid about the rule. The Queen said, you're either a full-time royal or you're out. I think an accommodation could be made by Charles. I think he would have been willing to do that. But it's been pretty obvious that the Sussexes really aren't interested in that.
After this documentary, after, the book comes out and this docu-series, do you think that they're going to have any sort of relationship between, the Sussexes and the royal family, or are they kind of, letting that ship sail?
I think that ship has sailed. One looks at people always look at the grandchildren. Oh, well, but Archie and Lily, they really have not paid a whole heck of a lot of attention to Archie and Lily. And there hasn't been a real huge effort to get them, to bring the two sides together. The comparisons, they're always making these comparisons with Wallace Simpson, the situation there where the forced abdication of Edward VIII. But Wallace Simpson at the last minute tried to back out. She did not want to bring down the monarchy. I'm not seeing that here. I'm seeing it. I think there's some intent there to, let's just say the result is that it's obviously very, very damaging and extremely embarrassing to Charles and the whole royal family. What's going on and what's probably going on and revealed not only in this, but we've got the book coming out in January. Harry's book.
Right. You said before, I think that this is a lot of people's question is, what do they hope to gain by all of this? Like, what do you think their end game is? Do they want to bring down the monarchy? Are they just looking for a paycheck? What are they trying to gain from all of this?
Well, I think there's always a financial component in all of this, and people don't realize the degree to which money is pursued by the royal family. Charles is famous for it because the rationale is you're funding all these charities and your causes and all that sort of thing. But and I'm sure that's the rationale on the part of Harry and Meghan. They're philanthropists after all. And influencers and people who are molding and shaping public opinion. And I think that's the key. I think they want some, if not a retribution, then some feeling of justice having been done. And they want the public to understand their side of the story. But of course, it does reap financial benefits to continue to do this. Mm-hmm. So it's a little of everything there, I think, in the mix. But again, the feeling of betrayal on Charles's part just kills me, because he did go so far out to embrace Meghan in the beginning, and again, the Doria Ragland thing is a perfect example. I mean, Charles walked Meghan down the aisle when her father wouldn't do it. I mean, how close can you get there? And all of a sudden, he's in a sense having someone spit in his eye. So it's very hurtful for him, I think. And confusing and bewildering for him. He also wonders, like the rest of us, not only what's in the documentaries and what's in the book, but why and what the ultimate goal is.
Do you think that anyone in the royal family has been given a heads up on what to expect in this docuseries?
No, I don't. I mean, I think they've tried to, obviously they've got spies out to find out what's in it. A few people have, there's a little blabbing going on, but we'll have to wait and see. So much was revealed, I think, or at least the tone or the angle that they're going to take was revealed in the trailers. I don't know how much is in the first one, but how they will differ. I think it looks to me like they're setting up the Diana story being relived and retold, in essence. Just the first part, tears behind the scenes and unhappiness and unfairness and all that. But there's got to be more than that. And I think they're worried that there will be. I look at the Hussey thing. I mean, the Susan Hussey incident. Again, I look at that and I think about the irony that, and I know this is a detour, but she made that comment, 83-year-old lady, where are you from? Don't ask that. Don't do that. Charles did the same thing a few years ago, and he got in trouble for doing exactly the same thing. When we, implied that the person who was of color was not really British, because, asking you where are you from and then kind of wondering how could you possibly be from Birmingham or Manchester? Well, you're very British people. Mm-hmm. But Lady Hussey made that mistake, and she made the mistake of pursuing it. And so she had to back off. But this is the widow of the man who ran the BBC, Marmaduke Hussey, for a couple of decades. And he's portrayed in The Crown as the fellow who tried to stop, the airing of the Panorama interview because he wanted to protect the crown. He was very much a stern, staunch monarchist in the Churchillian tradition. And here, many, many years later, his widow puts her foot in it and severely damages the crown. It's funny, the twists and turns of history,
It really is. And, maybe another twist and turn of history. Is it possible, depending on what is in this documentary, that Prince Harry could be stripped of his remaining titles after this?
Absolutely.
Would you think Charles would go that far?
I absolutely think so. I think that retribution could be in the offering. And there is some thing left. As a matter of fact, he might not even. I mean, I think he will be invited to the coronation, and I think they will go in May, unless everything blows up in everyone's face and irreparable damage is done. But there are more things that Charles is in the position to do. I think a lot of the financial, a lot of the deals that the Sussexes made, of course, were to render themselves independent of Charles's influence. Charles always had the purse strings as Prince of Wales. Now he really holds the purse strings as king. And of course, the titles and the charities and whatnot. And there's a lot left that Charles could do to punish Harry. Again, we'll just have to see if he takes that route or if he's just silent. The Queen, as I said, would have just pretended like nothing was happening and to keep calm and carry on. But Charles has a huge temper, has been unleashed many times behind the scenes. I've written about this, and I'm sure he's on the verge of having a meltdown.
It's like we said over and over again, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few weeks.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's get into our pint-sized palace. And in the midst of all this Netflix drama, Harry had the time to deliver a really sweet holiday message to military children. And he did so in head-to-toe Spider-Man costume. You know, he has long supported Scotty's Little Soldiers, and it's an organization that provides assistance to children of deceased military veterans. The nonprofit hosted an annual themed holiday party, and this year the focus was heroes and villains. And the little attendees were then tasked with saving the day by defeating villains who had stolen Father Christmas presents. To do so, they were so cute. They were asked to work together to complete a series of challenges and solve secret coded messages. Here's a quick look at Harry's message to them.
You're allowed to have the best time ever, especially with this Scotty Little Soldiers community. So go out there, have the best time, and Merry Christmas.
Say what you will about Harry, he does always give back, especially to military, especially to veterans, especially to children with deceased parents. So definitely a sweet message, especially around the holidays, which is so hard.
I know. I really loved this, and I would love to see more of this from Meghan and Harry, them doing these really sweet, important things, supporting the causes that are important to them, pushing forward, you know, Archwell's campaigns and projects that they are working on. And I want to see them succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think that in order to do that, they have to sort of close the book literally on their experiences over the last few years and just move forward and work forward. Because I want to see more of these sweet, amazing moments.
Definitely. This is the stuff we want to be talking about, not the drama. And hopefully, exactly. You know, after the Netflix, after the book, like you said, close the chapter and we can be done. Yeah. But something tells me no. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Royally Us. There was a lot to chat about. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say too. So please keep the comments coming, keep subscribing, and we will see you guys next week. Okay.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.